Maria Sheahan, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your role with Global Immersion. And those of you that are listening already have read that Maria is from Tijuana and was raised there and has a perspective as a local resident of Tijuana and one who now has been part of and understands the reality of short-term missions better than most. And so her perspective is incredibly important as we move into the immigrant's journey. So first question I have is, how has U.S. American short-term mission impacted Tijuana?
It does. It brings money into the culture. That's one of the first things, and most of the things that I'm going to say there, I'm going to say in general, generally speaking, not just generally speaking, but it does bring money to the economy. Most groups that come, they have to eat, they buy materials, and that's a good thing. But generally speaking, because there's always exceptions, it does show to the Mexicans not the reality about who the American people are. And so we have all these misconceptions of who they are. We think they're loud, they're rich, they come, they give, and they leave. And so it's just something that they come on certain occasions and then it's gone. Also, in Tijuana, it's saturated with groups, especially
like
in
church
certain
groups.
occasions of church groups. Easter is one of them. Summer is one of them. And Christmas is another one. And so there's even organizations that come with hundreds of church groups. And so much that at one point in Tijuana in the probably early 80s, the city was talking about making it illegal for church groups to go to Tijuana.
What?
Yes.
What was their specific rationale behind that?
How do you call it? Proselyte? When they share the gospel.
Proselytizing.
Yes. And because they could not differentiate, the government could not differentiate who was Jehovah's Witnesses, who was Mormons, who was, and what were they teaching? Are they against our customs and changing our people? So what's going on? So they were talking about making it illegal. It did not happen, but it does have huge implications, especially on the border towns. We're talking about Tijuana, or we're going to be talking about Tijuana, but this is all alongside the border. And so,
how would you say, specifically, how has these short-term missions impacted the Church of Tijuana, the existing institution of the church there to serve Tijuana, and then you have this massive influx of Westerners coming down? What's been the impact on the church?
Well, it fosters dependency all over the place. It creates a lot of times competition among churches and among the people in the church. The church or the receiver many times think that the American groups, they come to do something, that they're the ones that need to do something. A lot of times there's no real understanding of how to work together. And so many times we have as the receivers, we have a need to accommodate them. So it's not let's do this together, but we have to create something for this group that is coming, whatever that is, because they want to work. And so it has nothing to do with anything relational. It's more, how do we create a project for them, because that's what they're interested in.
So really they're acting like consumers. Like, you have to create a product for them to consume.
You have to create a product for them, which makes the church as we create a product for the American church.
Yeah. Just talking about how the dynamic is that the U.S. American church is really acting as consumers, and you have to create products. The Tijuana church has to create products for them to consume of sorts.
Correct. And as we as Mexicans do that, many times it does not allow for creativity.
Yeah.
in the Mexican church. We are very resourceful, and a lot of times that is almost like you put a lid on that because they're going to come to do it. Mm-hmm. We don't have to do anything else. And so it really keeps the Mexican church as we are the poor, you're the ones with the means. Yeah. You are the ones that you're the answer.
Yeah.
And that's how many times the Mexican church has taken that posture. Mm-hmm. We are poor. We need you. Yeah. You come and you give us, and that's.
So they actually begin to believe that narrative is true.
Oh yeah.
That somehow they're less than the U.S. American church.
We would not say that.
Yeah.
We would not even sometimes admit it.
Yeah.
But in reality, it is. In reality, that is what's happening. We would say, in these things, what happens all the time is that the poor are the ones that pay for things, right? And so when there's corruption, the poor are the ones that pay for it. When there's whatever it is, always the poor are the ones that end up paying the bigger price. Mm-hmm. And in this case, the Mexican church, again, I'm talking generally speaking, but the poor Mexican church that with less resources are the ones that end up paying the most, because that's where these American groups come.
Yeah.
They're looking for someone that needs help.
Right.
And so we don't allow the church to grow.
Yeah.
It stifles growth.
And I would say, having been, I led those trips for almost a decade, and it's like, I don't know if the intentions were inherently bad of the American church. No. I think there's just this assumption that we talk about this a lot with Global Immersion. We're entering in the posture of a hero rather than the posture of a learner. Like, we're not going with an open ear and an open mind and an open heart. We're going to solve the problems in a way that we perceive as the right answer.
And it is sometimes difficult to talk about this because I see both sides.
Yeah.
And I see how it is for a person that goes from the U.S. into Mexico for the first time.
Yep.
And their eyes are open and their heart is moved.
Yep.
So it's difficult to say it's that is not a good thing. Mm-hmm. But it has the price for it is very high.
Yep.
On the other hand.
Yep.
And so it is tricky.
What's the perception of local residents of Tijuana of the U.S. American church? Like, these short-term missions trips, white buses come across the border. What are you all thinking?
Well, I remember 30 years ago when somebody asked me that. I was still in Tijuana. I was still living there, and I remember saying, "You guys are rich." And I remember somebody saying to me, "Well, what makes you think that I'm rich?"
Yeah.
And I remember saying, "Well, I have to take public transportation. I can't afford a car. You have a car.
Yeah.
I don't have a telephone in my house. I don't have running hot water. You do." And so it's not, that's the perception.
Sure.
And because you have and I don't, then your life must be easier than mine. I don't see when you come over here, you don't talk about your needs or your hurts or your none of that. So how do I know that you have them? And so it is very easy to have that mentality that I can never be like you, and you are somehow bigger or something that I cannot attain. I cannot relate to you at all. I mean, what do you know about hurting? What do you know about poverty? What do you know about not being able to make ends meet? You will not understand that at all. And so that's the perception. My perception also was that you all have money in the bank, and I don't, right? And so that is a sad truth. That's a sad perception. It's not true at all, which it makes it even more sad that as the church receives groups all the time, that it's almost like never broken. This perception, not just in the church, but in the Mexican people, the Mexican people have about the Americans.
Which feels like the perception isn't going to change outside of relationship, right? Like, if you're in a relationship with those Americans, you then realize we don't all have money in the bank, or
exactly.
But if you don't have a relationship, of course you're going to make those assumptions because the power imbalance is so offline.
Exactly. When we start, you and I, talking about what's important to us, when we start talking about our families, and when we start talking about who we are, then we start to understand. And I've seen it happening when the locals are here and the Americans here, and then they start becoming friends, and this starts leveling, coming to a level. And it's beautiful to see. And so a lot of those misconceptions, a lot of those, and just the learning of each other, it's beautiful to see. But that doesn't happen very often.
A couple more questions. First, what would you say has been the most harmful aspect of the U.S. American short-term missions movement, and what could be the most helpful, constructive way forward? What might be an alternative?
I think one of the most harmful things has been the perception of needs. What the American church has perceived as needs. And many times I've heard churches say, U.S. churches say, we're working with this Mexican church, and they know we're working with a guy that is working for the church and one of the leaders in this very poor place. We're building houses, and then I've seen those places. And what has happened, which is really sad, is that everybody else, the locals that know the person in charge, hate him because he was put in a place of power, and he can decide who's going to get a house and who doesn't. And so there's a lot of rivalry, and there's a lot of fights, and there's a lot of, and it's ugly. Exactly. So I think the perception, you would not know truly what the needs of the other person are unless you really know that person.
That's right.
And so coming once a year does not give you that. You do not know. This is one of the things that I feel that is almost that is harmful too, that Americans a lot of times tend to think, to confuse, or to feel like it's the same thing to be an acquaintance and to be a friend. And it's just, many times I've seen people just meet each other and they go, "Hey Maria, this is my friend, my new friend." And it really isn't. It's your acquaintance. And so when you treat the other person as that's your friend, you can assume what your friend needs or what your friend wants, or it's confusing. And so I see that happening, and that damaging greatly these kinds of relationships.
Yeah.
Another thing is that the procession of needs, all their projects, seems like there's hundreds of groups coming to build something.
Mm-hmm.
A project, a house,
yep.
stairs, another room, whatever. Because you have to have a product.
Yeah. You have to go back to your church with like a success story.
And take the pictures.
Yeah.
And then you show them
Put it in your newsletter and show it around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is one of the most harmful things that has happened to Mexico.
Wow.
With good intentions from our brothers and sisters in the U.S.
Totally.
Again, I can tell you stories of places, churches. There's a church across the border that they went and built a big church for this pastor.
Mm-hmm.
The church is a massive building that is got like one little corner of people. And it's been like that for years.
Mm.
And so it is sad.
Yeah.
Again, most harmful has been the creativity of the Mexican church has been stifled. In 2008, when there was a lot of violence in Tijuana and in all the borders, the American church stopped going.
Yeah.
And so, but then the Mexican church rose.
Yeah.
And the Mexican church started saying, hey, we have the Children's Day, a holiday, the Children's Day. And so what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And people started moving and saying, hey, we all have a toy or two that we can donate. And the church put on events for children that day that it didn't have anything to do with the American church.
Yep. Yep.
And so then that people started helping each other. Unfortunately, and after the violence stopped and people are starting to feel safer to go down, we're back on the same habits and the same things, doing the same things.
Okay. Let's go into what could be a constructive way forward.
There isn't. I don't see another way other than relationship. But I really don't think that it almost feels like I'm saying a cuss word or something to the American church many times, because they go, then how?
Yeah, sure.
Then we have all this money.
Right.
There's a woman leading a ministry here, and they said I need to find people to give them mattresses because I got money for mattresses.
Yeah.
So find me some people that need mattresses, even if it's like, and I have from here in 2 weeks. So I need to find 20 people in 2 weeks that I need to give them mattresses.
Wow.
It's not going to happen. If it's not going to be helpful, it's going to be always harmful if it's apart from relationships, from friendships, from true ongoing friendships. There's been other groups that have done it well, that we've seen that they've done it well, but mainly is they're not doing building. They're working together on something.
Yep.
And there's so many things that you can work together on.
Sure.
One of our friends that leads a home for boys, he says, come and play soccer with my kids.
Yeah.
Come and teach my kids English.
Yeah.
Come and I just saw that there was a group that went there that put on like workshops for the children, teaching them electricity, and they had all kinds of hands-on projects to do with electricity and mechanics and things like that, things that you're investing in their well-being rather than giving or almost dumping stuff to them.
And that's the difference, right? It's like that requires that group listening to Luis, who's the leader of this home in Tijuana,
exactly,
to tell them what he actually needs, what those kids need.
Actually need.
Which requires we pause, and we're talking about our practices. Immersing is seeking to understand rather than to be understood. We actually have to be present and build relationships before we have any idea how to contend, how to actually roll up our sleeves and do something constructive.
Right. There was a church in California that went down there for about 10 years, and what they would do was they would come and they would have like a meeting with the women just to know each other and just to tell each other what God was doing in their lives.
Awesome.
And they became such good friends that it was amazing to see how the understanding of each other's lives just brought them to that same level. And no longer my friends in Mexico thought, all their misconceptions and all they were gone. And when this group left, they left people with better understanding, more prepared, more even the way they worked together and stuff, they were able to replicate that with others in the same town with other people. And that was beautiful.
Totally. That's a helpful example.
So make friends.
Yeah.
Know the difference between acquaintance and friendship.
Yeah.
I think that would be one of the most helpful things.
Thank you, Maria.
You're
Super
welcome.
grateful. Thanks for all the ways that you're inviting us to actually listen longer than feels comfortable and enter into this experience well.
You're welcome.